Hi, folks. I just wanted to give you a few reminders as you're working towards the developing paper number 2. Um, Firstly, of course, as you see in the announcement, this week, if you need to, you should be working to further revise your outline worksheet. So please thoroughly take a look at the feedback that I provided on your outline worksheet. And if what you developed is less than perfect at this point, it's really important that you utilize the feedback that I've provided to develop a newly revised version of that thesis worksheet, of that outline worksheet, with an effective set of topic sentences and thesis. And you can see in the announcement that I provided a deadline for you to submit a revised version of that this week. If you needed to do that revision, once you've completed that revision and you've gotten my feedback, then you're going to proceed towards writing the paper itself over the next few days. So I wanted to give you some reminders on the key things to think about as you're developing your paper. Of course, you want to make sure that your paper is truly fitting everything that we've talked about within this course about essay structure, about proper academic tone, and of course, in terms of the concepts that we're dealing with in this unit. So as you're developing your introductory paragraph, remember, when we go back to our lesson on essay structure, you want to make sure that you start out with a hook of some sorts. Let's say, for example, you're analyzing a film or TV show and you're analyzing its messages about gender. So maybe you make your hook be a situation or a scene within the film or TV show that encapsulates those key issues of gender. Or you could maybe start with a hook that relates to some gender situation in the real world. Those are two different kinds of approaches to a hook that could be effective as a way of starting off the discussion that you're having within your paper. After the hook, you then move your introductory paragraph towards the background information. Give the necessary background information on the visual text that you've chosen for this analysis, the film or TV show. A few sentences explaining what this show or film or whatever is about. And then ultimately, you want your last sentence or two of your introduction to be your thesis statement. Then you're going to have the body of your essay. You want to make sure that each body paragraph clearly starts with its topic sentence. The topic sentence is usually the first or second sentence of a body paragraph. And that everything within that paragraph is truly working to demonstrate the point made in that specific topic sentence. So that's why we've been working in the writing process on making sure the points that you're articulating in your topic sentences are clear and that they're developed enough so you can actually create a whole paragraph to make those points. Now, in your topic sentences and your thesis, you're not referring to individual characters or individual situations within the visual text that you've chosen. However, in the body paragraphs underneath your topic sentences, you are going to be bringing in specific examples from your chosen visual text. So your chosen TV show or film or whatever, you're going to be bringing in specific examples of things that people said or things that characters did that demonstrate the point you're trying to make within those topic sentences. So, prove it. Make as good a case as you can to prove the point that you're really demonstrating within your topic sentence for each body paragraph. Now, you're going to have a minimum of 4 of those body paragraphs. You've seen with this assignment, you need to have at least 4 topic sentences, honestly, to give you enough to develop for this paper. So you're going to have a minimum of 4 body paragraphs, 4 distinct messages or ideas that you see your chosen text sending about either gender or race. As made clear multiple times, your paper is focusing on one or the other, not both in the same paper. So most of you chose the gender path. That's fine. So you're making each body paragraph have its own distinct topic sentence, its own distinct message that you see that visual text sending about gender. And in that body paragraph, underneath each topic sentence, you're doing your best to demonstrate, to show that that idea is truly coming across within the text by showing examples of characters saying things or characters doing things, or the audience being positioned to perceive situations in a certain way that ultimately conveys these messages to the audience. Okay, lastly, when you get around to your conclusion, yes, you're going to have some kind of conclusive elements like that summarizes the key points that you've made. But as we previously talked about in our lesson on essay structure, Don't use the traditional conclusive transitions like in conclusion or in summary or anything like that. Never use those kinds of phrases. That's not what sophisticated writers do. You don't want to do that in sophisticated college level writing. So you may have some kind of summary as a sentence or two of your conclusion, but that's not the entire point of the conclusion. The most important thing the conclusion does beyond summarizing the key ideas that you've developed is helping the reader see the context of your analysis. So let's say you've chosen a film that you're analyzing for its messages about gender. In the conclusion, you want to help the reader see, why should they care? What relevance does this film that you're analyzing have in the real world? So why do the messages that are being sent within that particular film matter in the real world? What kind of influence does that film or show have on its audience in regards to that issue? So help the reader see why this analysis that you've developed ultimately matters. And usually that means by helping them see why the issue itself matters in the real world. That's a way to make your conclusion have a use to it, so there's more than just repeating what you've previously said. As you're writing your paper, don't forget, you got to make sure you meet the ultimate requirements of this assignment. The paper has to be at least 1,000 words in length, and so that's going to be at least 3 complete pages. So you're going to need at least 4 body paragraphs to get you to that point, but you might need 5 if you just don't honestly have enough that you can develop within 4 body paragraphs to get to that. You are not allowed to use any research whatsoever for this paper. This analysis is entirely based on your own intelligent ability to analyze the visual text that you've chosen. So you're going to watch the film or TV show that you've chosen, and you have developed these ideas entirely your own. So there's not going to be a single word or idea in this paper that comes from any kind of research. That could lead to plagiarism, and plagiarism would lead to failing the course. And we certainly don't want to see this happen. But beyond just the issue of plagiarism, the intention behind this assignment is for you to develop your analytical abilities, to be able to engage in this type of critical thinking that you can then articulate in your own words. A couple small things, but they're things to think about. Almost everybody here is dealing with a visual text like a film or a TV show or maybe a music video as your chosen visual text. Whenever you have the title of your film or show or whatever, you want to make sure that the title of that visual text is italicized. Every time you mention the title's name, you've got to italicize it. Make sure you follow the MLA rules for the layout of your paper. So have a proper MLA heading on your first page and proper margins and spacing. All of that is clarified within our lesson on MLA format layout within our first unit of the course. So it might be good to go back to that if you needed a refresher on that. Okay, so as you're working on all this stuff this week, if you have any questions, please always feel free to send me an email. I'm happy to respond to you and give you as useful feedback as I can, okay? All right, that's all, folks. Take care, everybody.